Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Famvestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sunny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
Today, we are talking about how to buy a house. You know, something everyone pretty much needs to know at some point in their lives. We've needed to know it like 4 times now. We are officially under contract with another house. And so I am excited about this because this is really what got me into real estate investing, was trying to learn what is the step-by-step process of how to buy a house. You know, talking about everything from getting a home inspection to getting pre-approved to, you know, researching public records to see if there's any liens on the property or, you know, open permit requests, and then how to like submit an offer. So we want to go through that whole process. You know, this is our 4th property that we're kind of acquiring. So we've been through this process 4 times, and we just want to tell you the little tips and tricks we've learned along each way, how we even find properties, how we buy them, and then the whole process we use to make sure to get them under contract. And I'd say we have a pretty novel way of going about it that's very effective. So before we get into that, though, I want to share once again my famous famvestor.com/resources page. Famous. Like famous Amos cookies, but even more famous than that. So go to famvestor.com/resources, and here I have the best of the best. But you know, since we're talking real estate, let me focus on that. On this page, we have spreadsheets on how to analyze properties, how to track your expenses if you're a small business owner, how to do a property appraisal with comps, how to use Cozy. And also, if you're in New Jersey, I have this special website which will tell you the owners and the owner's address. It's a government website run by New Jersey of any property in New Jersey, which is an insanely useful tool. Especially, I'll go into why it's so valuable later on in the show. And then I have my real estate investing forms. Pretty much all the landlord forms I need. My lease, property rules, regulation, non-refunding, holding deposit. There's like 10 forms here that you need to use as a landlord. And it's all free. It's all on Google Docs. Every single image that you click will just take you to an editable Google Doc sheet. Well, actually, it's not editable. You just go to File, make a copy, and you'll have an editable version for yourself so you don't mess up my master. But anyway, lots of great resources on this page. I should like make this a membership thing. That's how good it is. So get it while it lasts. That's a good one, huh? So that's the free tip of the day. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's get to the show.
You're listening to the Famvestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
Okay, so how to buy a house. The very first thing you need to do is figure out what kind of house you want to buy.
Right.
You know, early on in our lives, we decided that we want freedom above all else. You know, that's what we want to buy, is our freedom. So we decided the way for us to go do that is buy a 3 or 4 family property and be able to live for free, to maximize our savings and, you know, eventually buy our freedom. And we're well on our path to doing that.
Right. And I think that it's so important when you set out on a house buying search to really hone in on what your priorities are. Maybe you're not going into investing in a multifamily, but even with a single family, let's say you're looking for that single family home, you need to have your list of need to haves and want to haves. And if you don't have that, you might end up just buying the first one you walk into because you liked it. It was the first one you visited and you got caught up in the moment. I know a few friends who did that, and then a year or 2 later, you know,
they
talking
realized
to
how
them,
expensive the taxes were.
there were things that they didn't consider initially because they hadn't really thought about it. And then they're like, man, you know, maybe I shouldn't have picked this one. And you don't want to be in that place where you've just made this huge financial commitment to something and then feel a couple years down the road, maybe it wasn't the best decision. You want to be sure about what you're doing.
Right.
So the first thing we recommend is to draw a list of your need to haves and your want to haves, and perhaps even a list of the do not haves.
Right.
So that you clearly have a vision in your mind. And we're not talking about paint color or picket fences. We're talking about important things like how much is too much in taxes? What is the right tax number for you? What is the right square footage of a house for you? You know, believe it or not, bigger is not always better. You know, I have a friend who complains to me constantly about they bought a big house and it is so darn hard to keep up cleaning it. If you can keep up cleaning with it, maybe it's not an issue for you, but definitely something to think about. You know, square footage of house, size of the lot that you're buying. Do you want a big yard, a small yard, the landscaping that'll go into it? Big yard's beautiful. Do you have the time to mow it and to take care of it? All these considerations. We drew up a list ourselves, which we're going to share with you about for the house we're currently looking for. Certain things that we felt were important to us.
Right. And this is a completely different stage in our lives. You know, now we have kids. Our plan was always to buy 2 investment properties and then a third, like our own primary single family dreamish home just for our family to grow up in. We kind of circumvented that, bought three rental properties, and then this 4th property. But still, now we're getting back to that plan, and we drew up a list like, okay, what's important to us? We wanted to back up to woods, have a backyard close to my work. I wrote biking distance to my work, park close by, a YMCA or pool within proximity. Taxes, you know, we want low. Neighbor quality, we want relatively high. We want a creek nearby, a lake pond nearby, room to entertain, acreage, stores, mall nearby, sidewalks, not excessive stairs, and we want it not to be septic but sewer. We want it to be public water, not well. We want natural gas, not propane. Anyway, these were our wants, and we ranked each like criteria, like what's important to you, Sun Marie, what's important to me, and we ranked what was important.
From a ranking of 1 to 5, 5 being most important, 1 being not so important to us.
And then we began our search that way, and we're happy kind of to have found, you know, go under contract today with a house that kind of met a majority of that criteria, and you know, super excited for our family to grow up in that house and have that environment where they can be outside so much of the day and be just conducive to growing a great, wholesome family.
Right. So drawing a picture on paper of what you want and what you want to avoid is very important. And of course, you have to be open-minded that you may not find something that hits every single checkpoint on your list. But if the majority of them meet your criteria and you feel you can take that compromise, be open to it.
But it's important to know your list, because if you don't know what you're searching for, you won't know when you
You'll
find it.
You'll just buy the first pretty house you walk into.
And even when we were buying our first rental property, we wanted it to be, you know, close to a train station, low taxes, high rental environment. And so those were kind of our search criteria, and that's why we
safe neighborhood.
Yeah, so that's
not
how
a flood zone.
Yeah, that's how we centered around Garfield from those search criteria. Anyway, I want to go into a lot more practical details. That's kind of vague and generic. But, okay, so how to actually go, once you have an idea of what you want, what do you do? So, you know, pre-approval is a big thing. So getting a pre-approval. You don't need a realtor right away. You don't even need a realtor. We've never had a dedicated realtor working for us to look for houses. We've always just hopped on. Realtor.com's my favorite. What's your favorite?
I love Trulia. I like the map that you can
search for location. Yeah,
locations.
In this last house purchase, we weren't like just going town by town. We were going by map, and we were looking for like woods next to that, like houses that backs up to state land and things like that. So we were using the map feature a lot. But you don't need a realtor to find a house. With a lot of the websites these days, like Realtor.com, you just can find a lot. You can even search for things like in-law suites and do multifamily searches by yourself. I mean, realtors do have MLS. They can search more, but you really don't need it. You know, we haven't used a realtor to buy any of our houses. We always call the listing agent, who is a realtor for the seller, and they become our dual agent usually in the purchase of a house. So anyway, that shouldn't stop you from starting your search.
Right. So and I think working with a realtor is great too if you have one and you can build that relationship with someone. But if you don't have one yet, or don't want one, or just don't have one, you don't need to feel like, oh, I can't find a house because I don't have anyone helping me.
Right.
You can do a lot of the footwork, and especially the initial footwork yourself, just through hopping onto those search engines.
Right. And I think the reason we never got a realtor is like we heard a tip a long time ago that, if you work with a listing agent as and they become your buyer's agent, they get double the commission. They are really incentivized to have you close. And I found that to be true. I honestly have. So I think it's a good tip to keep in mind. Some people need more hand-holding. We are very do-it-yourselfers, so we felt, we don't need a realtor on our side anyway. Like a dual agent realtor won't be on one side or the other. They have to kind of stay impartial.
That's something to keep in mind.
And they knew the seller first, so really they're friends to the seller.
They won't advocate for you. So if you feel you need someone to walk you through the process and keep you on par with all the document submissions and so forth, then it's a good idea to get a realtor, because a realtor will really assist you in that. They'll tell you, hey, you need to get your attorney involved now. You need to get inspections done now. They'll remind you of those things. And they'll have those
contacts for an attorney or for an inspector if you don't have those sort of things.
Right. So there's a lot of benefit to going with a realtor.
Right, but the listing agent will give you those same contacts too, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Anyway, I have a great post, fanvestor.com/triplex, and there I write up kind of the step-by-step process I use to buy our North Arlington triplex. But you can kind of use that as a framework to how to go about, and that's kind of what we're going to be using for this episode. But we'll give you a little more backstory about all our properties and how it worked out. So usually you want to get a pre-approval letter. And really, I've gotten pre-approval letters without even getting a credit score check. I just ask a bank contact that I know. One realtor referenced me to a representative they knew. And she was like, okay, how much is the house purchase price? Give me a little bit of financial data. Okay, you're pre-approved. And it was literally like one email. And then 30 minutes later, I had a pre-approval letter from a prominent bank.
Other banks want to do a more in-depth pre-approval, and they'll probably run your credit score and look into things. So it all depends on which bank you work with.
Right.
But the first step definitely is getting a pre-approval so that you have a number in mind of what you can be looking at. Because you don't want to be looking at $1 million house if you can only buy a $300,000 house. You want to make sure you're not getting your hopes up for something that's unreasonable.
And a lot of realtors and even listing agents won't show you a house unless you're pre-approved. They want to know that they're using up their own time for a potential sale. If they don't know that you can afford it, they're not going to waste their time on it.
Right.
So that's why the pre-approval is kind of important, but it's not a big deal. You can get these pre-approvals without even getting a hard credit score check. So don't let that stop you either.
But that should be one of the first things you do.
And if you don't want to go that route, you can go to open houses and see houses that way. That's kind of how we started too. I think we had the pre-approval letter first, but we went to open houses because we weren't working with a realtor, and we kind of just wanted to learn the market, learn kind of the house buying process. So we would just go to open houses.
Yeah, we'd go on weekends and just check out the houses in the areas we were interested in, get an idea of what's out there, the condition of it for the various price points. Because that's important to know too. Because you find a house that fits within your budget may not mean it's a good deal. So the way you can figure out whether a house is a good deal or not, obviously, is by going to more and more houses in that same area to know, is this house overpriced, underpriced? Is it priced low because it needs $100,000 worth of renovations? Or is it overpriced and that if I put any work into it now, all of a sudden it's, you're spending more than the property's even worth. Right. So go visit open houses and also study on your search engines, Trulia, Zillow, Redfin, whichever one you like. The more you're looking at a specific area and the more you see the houses pop up, the better you'll start to get a sense of what is an appropriate going rate for these houses.
Right. You can just take a quick flash look, 10 seconds, and oh, that's a bad deal. Oh, that's a deal worth looking into. And soon enough, 1 second look, good deal. Okay, not worth my time to look at. Good deal, not worth my time.
Right. And
then you just start analyzing and figuring out, is it worth taking a deeper dive into it. And so how did we find our 4 properties? The first one we just found off the MLS, And sorry, so that was Realtor.com. I think I had a saved search for Garfield, New Jersey. Any multifamily houses, just email me over. And so I got an email one night, and it was for a 12-bedroom, 4-bath quadplex in Garfield. And I went to Sunray, and I was like, hey, this is the house we're going to buy. And we did. That's the house we bought. Yeah. And for the second house, I was just searching through Craigslist. And I had a saved search on Craigslist too for the word family in the real estate section. So if anything with the word family, single family, 3-family, 2-family, multifamily came up, I got an email text alert as soon as it was set up through ifttt.com. I go into details in my blog post, and I'd get an alert. So I got an alert for this 3-family house that went for sale in North Arlington, and that's how we ended up buying that too. I just called the for sale by owner Craigslist ad, and we got it that way. The third property,
I had a saved search through Trulia, and I guess, the various, however they target you, they know you're searching for multifamilies. I got a email
Facebook
from...
Ad. No, you got a targeted Facebook ad, I thought.
Oh, yeah, I got a targeted Facebook ad from Rex, which is a new up-and-coming... real estate brokerage.
Doesn't use the MLS, just artificial intelligence.
Right. So what they do is basically look for people who are looking for specific types of homes and then target them with ads.
Well, they target us well. We ended up buying it. Another 4-family.
But it was a cool property as well because those houses were not on the MLS, which kind of gives you as a potential buyer an advantage because you don't have as much competition as you would looking at a multifamily off the MLS where everybody's seeing it.
Right.
So that's how we found our third property.
Right. And the fourth property, you contacted a listing agent on another property, and then she was like, oh, your criteria is this, and that. Well, what about this house?
I have another house I'd like to show you. Yeah. Might fit your needs.
And it was actually, pretty much hit all our criteria dead on. So that's how we found that. So, yes, we kind of worked with a realtor for this last
fourth one. That's right.
Okay, so anyway, once you find the house, okay, what do you so I'm just going to go through the scenario I went through with the North Arlington house. I called the owner and I had to figure out, I asked him, what are the taxes? What is it zoned for? Because it was a 3-family. Is it legally zoned for a 3-family? I asked, is it vacant or occupied? I asked, are the utilities separate? So some of these things don't apply to a single family, but for a multifamily, I asked, what is the setup? What is the first unit? Is it 2-bedroom? Is it 3-bedroom? What's the second? What's the third unit? And then I asked for rental amounts. I asked, is there parking? And I asked, why are you looking to sell? And I would ask that in every scenario.
And also, if there are tenants in place, how long
the leases are
they on lease? Are they month to month? Are they year long, 5-year long? We recently looked at a house that had just signed on their tenant for a 3-year lease. So depending on your needs, that's important to know whether it's worthwhile even going to look at the property.
Right. And having all that information about taxes, and you can find a lot of that on the MLS. This one was on Craigslist, so I had to ask it. You can run the numbers, knowing how much you're going to pay for taxes, knowing you can kind of estimate costs for utilities like gas and electric once you get a feel for those numbers. And then property insurance and all of that to see. And then you can, I use things like renometer.com to get a ballpark estimate. Also, I just hop on Craigslist or hotpads.com to get a ballpark estimate on how much rent can be expected for a 2 or 3-bedroom. And I plug that all into my analysis sheet, which is right on my website on the resources section.
So once you realize the numbers work on the property that you are looking to buy, you can then take the next step and go look at the property. It's important to go look at the property for a number of reasons. One is to just get a feel for the property. Do you like it or not? 2 is to notice if there's any egregious things that are going to make you run the other way. For example, we had a property we analyzed. Everything seemed to line up really well. The numbers worked. The rents worked. The tenancy terms of leases worked. It was near our other rental property. And we're like, oh, cool. Let's go check this one out. So I went to check it out one day. I go in the front door. I walk into the first apartment, which is on the 2nd floor. And there's a giant gaping hole in their living room. And I could see the sun shining through. They had a tarp hanging from it to funnel water down into a bucket. And I'm like, how's your roof? And they're like, oh, they don't really complain about it. I'm like, all right, I don't think this house is for us. If this is how it's been upkept, And if these are the tenants who are okay living in this sounds like a mess to me. Not interested in dealing with this right now. So on paper, you wouldn't have known that until you walked in the door and saw that problem. Now, you're not going to find gaping holes in every single house you go into, but definitely the walkthrough will let you know whether it's for you or not.
Right. Anyway, so once you've analyzed, what the cost of your repairs are going to be, and if it is indeed the house for you, you can make an offer. And usually you do an offer through the realtor. You tell the realtor, what purchase price you want to pay and what your down payment's going to be. Is it going to be the full 20%? Is it going to be 10%? Are you going to offer cash for everything? And then the type of loan is going to be like a conventional loan. So a lot of the strong offers are like 20% down. Well, strongest offer is I'm paying cash for this thing because, the seller knows no bank is going to not lend to you because it's all cash. So that's the strongest offer. Second strongest is probably a conventional financing, 20% down loan. And so that's and if you have like an FHA loan, which is a lower down payment, 3.5%, it's a weaker offer because there's a lot of stipulations that come with FHA. So those are the reasons you might consider going, FHA and putting a lower down payment or putting a higher down payment. Because if you're in a high competitive environment where
a lot of offers are going to be coming in,
then the sellers are just not even going to consider the FHA offers. They're just going to take, the strong offers.
The more conventional 20% down offers.
Right, because they know there's going to be less contingencies. If it doesn't appraise for a good enough amount and there's only 3.5% margin there, if they have a 20% down, they can appraise a lot less than what you're paying for it, and you can still go through with it. The lender will still lend. There's a lot of reasons why they like the higher down payments.
Right. So know your area, know the competitive nature of the home. If it's a slow market and there aren't a lot of competitors, you may be just fine with an FHA home, FHA loan.
Right. And what I also want to say is every single house we've bought, we've submitted a personal letter to. And I think that is key. We've been told, on several of these houses that the only reason the seller accepted your offer is because of your letter. And yours wasn't even the highest offer. And we do a really good job at writing the letter. Actually, I want to upload it to my resources page of a sample letter, an offer letter.
The nice thing about writing a letter to the seller is it makes the experience personal. It takes it out of the realm of just another piece of paper that comes across my desk, and it becomes a person to person.
Right.
Hey, this is who I am. This is the story of my background, and this is why I love your home.
And why it would be perfect for us to buy.
Right. And it's being very honest about, how this home really fits your needs. And it tells the seller that you're serious about the home, that you actually will care for it and love it as they have. And I think that goes a long way.
Even for rental properties, you think it's just a business-to-business transaction, but it's really not. It gets personal. You yourself would want to give your place to, a young couple who's trying to build their financial dreams. And,
or whatever it might be. It makes a difference when you can bring it into the personal realm. I think it makes the seller feel better, and it makes you feel better, that you're relating on more than just, bland old paperwork.
Right. So I highly recommend it if you can write a personal letter. We even put a personal family picture at the bottom of it, and I think that is the reason we've had a lot of success in purchasing these homes. So once you submit your offer, what we really like to do is submit an OPRA request, Open Public Records Act. And we submit that directly to the town. So if we were in North Arlington, we would go to the North Arlington Town Hall, the borough. And sometimes you can even just Google, North Arlington OPRA request form. And you can find that form and you could digitally fill it in and then just email it to the county clerk or the town clerk and then ask for certain things. And we like to do this to kind of just do the due diligence period. And maybe this is even before the seller would accept your offer. You can wait till after, but it can take up to 7 to 14 days to get back the information. And that's part of your due diligence phase and finding out, do I really want this house?
Right. The sooner you get the ball rolling on that, the better it is for you, because then you get more information in your hands before you start making commitments to things.
Right, before you have to pay down like a down payment or something. The less you get entrenched into this house, because submitting an offer is free. You're not substantiating any money at that point. It's free to do. But
once it's accepted,
right, and
then it becomes more serious.
Right, after you exit attorney review. Anyway, we'll go into that. But with the OPRA request, what you want to ask for, and we have this detailed on our website, but usually we ask something like, hey, I'm buying a house at this address in North Arlington. We'd like some background information. Hey, is there any oil tanks on the property? Can you show the zoning code paperwork on how many units it's supposed to be for? Any building or permit violations on this property? Any liens or any overdue tax statements or water or utility bills? And then we ask for, can you give us a copy of all the closed permits for work done on the house in the past 10 years?
Or open permits if there are some.
Yeah.
One of the houses we recently bought had a bunch of open permits. Good thing we looked. They had to be taken care of before closing. It's just a headache you don't want to deal with, someone else's construction job and trying to get those closed. Another house we were really serious about, we sent in our OPRA, and we were told it was a 3-family.
That's right.
And a legal 3-family, and it was all set up as a 3-family, 3 mailboxes out front there.
Yeah, crazy.
Sent in the OPRA report, and the town had it listed as a single family. And we went back to them and we're like,
how can this be a single family when there's 3 mailboxes, 3 different tenants inside the units?
They
and
they were talking to us.
And they said the whole town there was only two up to 2 families. There's not a single 3-family allowed in the whole town.
Right.
And so then we went back to the listing agent and we're like, hey, so what's this about? And yeah, they stopped talking to us.
Right.
So do your due diligence and submit that OPRA request.
We were ready to buy the house.
Yeah,
it hit all our marks, and then it wasn't a legal 3-family.
Right.
And we didn't want to deal with having something that wasn't legal,
And it didn't seem like even a variance or something would have been allowed, because if there's no 3 families allowed in the town, it just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And if it was just a duplex, the numbers wouldn't work. So.
Yeah, so OPRA reports can be very helpful.
Completely free. Just takes an email.
And I mean, to be fair, a listing agent only knows as much as the seller tells them, and the seller may not know, or who knows what. It wasn't that they were withholding information from us necessarily, but it is helpful to do your due diligence to not get caught in a situation where you buy something and find out, oh, that apartment on the 3rd floor is actually not legal.
Yeah. So anyway, after you submit your offer and it gets accepted, then it's time to get, at least in New Jersey, attorneys involved. Not every state requires an attorney, but in New Jersey, you do. I don't know about the other states, so I'm just talking about our own experience. And then your attorney usually submits some kind of letter of intent of purchase, and there's a back and forth between the seller's attorney and the buyer's attorney, and you go back and forth about the terms of the sale. What your down payment's going to be, when closing dates are going to be, things of that nature. And that takes usually, 3 to 5 days to go through that attorney review. Once attorney review is over, that is technically when you are under contract. And then you have some sort of window, usually around 10 to 15 days, where your due diligence period comes in. After that 10 to 15 days, your initial deposit is due, and you have to start... that's when you're supposed to do all your inspections. If you want to do a home inspection, if you have like a septic system, you inspect the septic. You do termite
tank scan for oil tanks,
buried oil tank scans, things of that nature. All happen at this phase. You can also start that OPRA request if you didn't start it earlier. And this is really when you determine, hey, is this house exactly what we signed up for? And this is when you can determine, do we really want this house? And maybe you still want this house, but maybe now there's contingencies. Hey, I only want this house if, my home inspection report came back with this outlet not working and that fan not working and this HVAC system not properly installed. If you want me to buy this house, now you got to make, these repairs. And so, we've done it before where we have like a structural engineer come out and say, hey, this was done incorrectly. It's going to be, $10,000 in repairs. Can you make the fix with a licensed contractor, or give us, that $10,000 deduction in price, and done things like that. So this is the time period for that back and forth while you're under contract. So if you're a first-time home buyer, I definitely recommend you walk through the home inspection process with the home inspector. Usually they're really good about it. They're knowledgeable people who just want to share their information. Here, if you're looking on screen, is a sample home inspection report. I love ones that give you pictures of detailed records. And you just kind of see what they start to look for, just so you kind of get a sense of, problem areas in houses. And if they point to things that need fixing, once you become the homeowner, you can fix them and you can gauge how big a deal it actually is. So I definitely recommend walking through. This particular inspection took 3 hours. He was very diligent, checking everything out. So that's definitely something I would recommend doing, is walking through with the home inspector when you're checking out the property.
So once your offer's been accepted, you're in the 10-day inspection period. It's a good time to start looking for your lender, the person that you're going to ultimately get your loan from. It can be the same banking institution that gave you your pre-approval, or it can be an entirely different banking institution. You don't have to stick with the same one that gave you the pre-approval. Shop around and find a bank that gives you the best bang for your buck.
Best interest rate is primarily what you're looking for. I'm always looking for 30-year fixed rates and looking for the cheapest rate. But also what you want to consider is closing costs. Things like, is there a loan origination fee? Do I have to pay points? Do I have to pay an application fee? What is the appraisal fee like? Those 3 things kind of you can shop around for and find the best deal. What I found is smaller banks and credit unions give you the best deal. For this next deal, I've closed in on Pentagon Federal Credit Union. Anyone can use them, any civilian. You don't have to be military associated, and they have no appraisal fee. No application fee, no loan origination fee. You don't have to pay any points. It's locked in right now at 3.25%, and they give you a $1,500 lender credit fee at closing, lender credit back, which is awesome. And then you just have to pay a $575 appraisal fee. So really good deal. Pentagon Federal Credit Union, really excited to use them for the first time. And previously we've used Trustco Bank. And then, so smaller banks and credit unions, I think, are your best bet.
Yeah, definitely worth looking into your local banks. Sometimes they will be more stringent in their requirements than larger banking institutions. So if you run into a dead end with a small bank, don't feel discouraged. You can look for larger lenders as well. Just their terms may not be as satisfactory for you. You might be paying a higher interest rate and higher fees, but there's definitely room for shopping around.
Yeah. And so what lenders are going to ask from you is a lot of documentation. They're going to do a credit score check. They're going to check you pull your full credit, actually. They're going to want bank statements for the last two months. They're going to want pay stubs, your last 2 years of tax returns, your W-2s, and all that kind of stuff, all your assets, all your liabilities. They want a list of all of that information. So it can be time consuming, but once you've done it enough times, I've become organized where I can quickly pull it up.
It's kind of like doing your taxes.
It is kind of like doing your taxes.
Right.
So once your bank files all that, then they'll hire the appraiser to come out and assess your property. They don't want to give you a loan if your property is not worth it. They don't want to, say you're buying a property for $500,000. They don't want to give you a loan for $500,000 if it appraises at $400,000. They don't want to they don't want to give you a loan for a property that's not worth it.
Right. They want to make sure you're buying a solid investment because their money is backing it up. So they are going to send out an appraiser. And what an appraiser is someone who walks through the property and they are looking for what they will value it at. Mm-hmm. How updated are the electrical panels, how updated are the kitchens and the bathrooms, in what condition is the home, are there any major repairs needed? And they also base it off of comparables in the area, other houses that have sold within the past
90 days.
90 days
typically
is their window. They're looking for comparable houses that have sold and what they sold for in that neighborhood to know whether what you're paying is actually.
So if you have a 4-bath 2-bed, they'll compare it to other 4-bath 2-beds and then do little price adjustments. Oh, this one has a garage, plus $15,000 it's worth. Oh, this one doesn't have a paved driveway, negative $10,000, and just do little adjustments there. Brand new remodeled kitchen, plus $5,000, whatever. And they'll make those little adjustments to find out, okay, your house is actually worth this amount. So you always want your appraisal to definitely be over the requested loan amount, but ideally over the purchase price. So once you get a commitment from your bank, you can essentially close at that point. You can close the loan, and that's when, we've always met in my attorney's office where the seller comes, the seller's attorney comes, and your lender comes, and your title insurance person comes too. The title insurance usually checks out, is the deed okay, is there any liens, and then ensures that there's no liens against the property. And so they all meet in a closing office. You sign 100 documents, it seems like, and the lender will come and give a check to the seller for the amount of the house sold. And it's a very interesting day. And this is where you have to bring your full deposit to closing. Maybe you had an initial deposit, and then you have to bring your full deposit. You have to pay, all the closing costs. We've averaged about $10,000 in closing costs. So you have your purchase price, you have your down payment. So you have to bring your down payment to the table on top of $10,000 in closing costs, or whatever it may be. So it's a lot of money coming to closing. And you remember, you got to so part of closing costs and why it makes it so expensive is usually you're paying your first quarter in taxes. So property taxes, you're paying in full. You're paying a full year of property insurance in full. So all these things just add up, because property insurance for us has been averaged like $1,500 a year. So you got to bring $1,500 up front, and then again the taxes. You got to pay your attorney. Also around $1,000 for the attorney. You got to pay taxes to the county to register the new deed. All these expenses. If you want a detailed list, go to my website, famvestor.com/triplex, and you can find that breakout there.
So congratulations. Once you reach that point, you are now homeowners. The previous owner hands you the keys, and it is now your house. So just to recap, the steps that you go through.
And this is like a 30-day process if you are super, super quick. Typically, we take upwards of 90 days. And I'd say average is probably more around 60 to 90 days for most homeowners. 30 days would be really quick.
From when you initially submit your offer to when you sit down to close.
Yeah.
So it's not a quick process. It does take time. If you put an offer in, it gets accepted, you're not moving in next week. It's a timely process. So be prepared for that. Just to recap all the steps we mentioned to bring it fresh back to your mind. Step 1, write a list of what's important to you so that you can really focus to find what is the right choice for you. Step 2, call or start looking on the MLS and the search engines, Trulia, Zillow, whatever you have, working with a realtor, perhaps to find you a home that matches your criteria. Step 3, call and ask some pertinent questions. Does it have, certain taxes, tenants, lease amounts, age of utilities, underground oil tanks, and the such? Once that checks out, run your numbers. If they all look like they work, go and tour the property. Make sure everything is satisfactory to your standards. Step 3, you like the property, submit an offer. Fill out an offer, send it in, and then get an OPRA report rolling. Once you have that done, if the offer is accepted, then you go into attorney review. During attorney review, the documents are being reviewed by your attorneys, and they're checking to make sure that the terms are correct. Once it passes through attorney review, you'll go into under contract, where it's officially your time to start getting inspections and to looking for surveys and tank sweeps and anything that could be red flags for you. Once you get all of that done, then you submit your initial down payment, partial down payment for the house, and you start searching for a lender. Find your lender, figure out what terms are satisfactory to you, get a lender, and when a lender is involved, you'll be asked to send in an appraiser, or they will send in an appraiser to appraise the property. When everything checks out, they'll approve you for a loan, and then you are ready to close. And then you just go and sign off 1,000 papers, get a sore wrist, and hand her the keys.
So anyway, we hope this episode has been helpful. Again, feel free to go to fanvestor.com/triplex to see the written up process of it all documented. And we wish you the best of luck in purchasing your new home. We hope that you start with an investment property and then move on to bigger and better things from there.
Good luck on your journey. Don't be afraid. It's fun and it's exciting and always worth it.
Godspeed, everyone.